Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses, as we continue with Part 23, The Illuminated Ones, from A History of Secret Societies by Arkon Daraul. Chapter 22, The Illuminated Ones. The 16th century saw the rise of a powerful society based upon a secret cult in the mountains of Afghanistan, the Roshaniya, Illuminated Ones. References to the existence of this mystical fraternity exist from the time of the House of Wisdom at Cairo, several hundred years before. It seems likely that small branches were founded in various parts of the Near and Middle East, which would account for the special usage of the names of the 8 degrees of initiation among them. The earliest figure named in the history of the cult is one Bayezid Ansari of Afghanistan, whose family claimed descent from the Ansar, the Helpers, who assisted Muhammad after his flight from Mecca nearly 1400 years ago. As a reward for this service, he stated, his ancestors had been granted initiation into the mysteries of the Ishmaelite religion. The secret inner training which dated from Abraham's rebuilding of the temple at Mecca, the mystical Haram. Bayezid's own father, however, was known to be as narrowly conventional as anyone in the country, and one account of the rapid rise of the sect has it that Bayezid, after a period of preparation for the normal priesthood, was converted to his strange doctrine by a missionary from the Ismailis, the sectarians holding a secret doctrine supposedly handed down in the family of the Prophet, who maintained hidden lodges throughout the world of Islam, and also claimed, after the Crusades, to have penetrated with their ideas even Spain, Germany, and parts of Britain. However this may be, the Illuminated Ones soon became more than a headache for the governors of Afghanistan, the Mughal rulers of India, and their Persian neighbors. Not far from Peshawar, which is now in the northwest of Pakistan, Bayezid set up a small school where he carefully coached those who had been initiated by him in the knowledge of the supernatural that he claimed. A period of probation was expected from each candidate, during which he would go into periods of concealment or meditation, known as khilwat, silence. During this time, he was to receive the illumination which was emanated from the Supreme Being, who desired a class of perfect men and women to carry out the organization and direction of the world. Bayezid collected in this way, over a period of 3 years, about 50 staunch disciples, whom he had trained in obedience and to whom, so we are told, he had shown a way whereby they could liberate their inner powers. This meant that they were ready to follow his further instructions. These orders, according to what his opponents say, were that the whole sect would now become bandits to prey upon the rest of the world. Little information is available from the other side, but 3 letters said to have been written from one branch to another contain in outline a plan to reshape the social system of the world, first taking control of individual countries, one by one. But something does survive of the degrees of initiation. The first was Salik, seeker, followed by Murid, disciple, Fakir, humble devotee, Arif, enlightened one, Khwaja, master, Emir, commander, Imam, priest, and Malik, chief for king. This succession does not follow the usual pattern of promotion in the Muslim mystical secret societies, the tariqas, and seems to have been specially devised for this one. In the first 3 degrees, the candidate perfected himself by repetitions of certain phrases which were believed to carry power. Examples are these: Rabba, Afarina, Haya, Hafida, Kuwaya. Of these words, all Arabic or Persian, the first stands for the concept of lordship, the second for creation, the third for life, the fourth for protection, and the last for absolute power. If they were repeated with deep meditation upon various forms of their manifestations in human life, it was believed the appropriate power would come into the devotee. No special deity was worshipped, but it was believed that there was a supreme overall power which was known by the sum of its individual powers, lordship, protection, and so on, and that when one had meditated upon them all, and they had become the property of the invocant, he would thenceforward be a man of complete power. This kind of idea underlies a good deal of religious and magical thinking in many faiths, though it is seldom put in as concise a manner. The enlightened one of the 4th degree was he who could attain, during the rituals, complete identification with this overall power, and was guided by it in all that he did. This meant that, apart from the guidance of the chief, He was free to suit his own pleasure in life. No theological or social bonds limited him. It is at this stage, said the Illuminated, that the Arif could perform acts of wonder and magic, influence the physical world, and know the secrets of others. He attained this degree through the acceptance of him by the Master, to whom he had confided his dreams and mystical ecstasies. The Master alone really knew whether these were true or false experiences, and promoted him accordingly. Some people proceeded to the higher degrees without going through all the lower ones, because they were helped by the spirits of former illuminates who had died. The Master, Emir, Imam, and Malik degrees were reserved for the very highest men and women initiates. After the 5th degree, the segregation of the sexes in rituals was no longer practiced. Anyone of the degree of Imam and higher could start his own lodge and make disciples. Bayezid decided to move his headquarters into the most inaccessible mountains of Afghanistan, where he set up a large and luxurious castle, and from which he directed his military and bandit operations, designed to overcome the rest of the East. His missionaries were sent far and wide, but received little official support. The cult did, however, spread among merchants and soldiers who thought that this gateway to mystical experiences was something to enter. They contributed lavishly to the chief's upkeep and his most expensive military, political, and espionage system. The heady wine of this success seems to have affected the prudence of the head Illuminate more strongly than it should, for his claims became more and more extreme and public. There was, he now preached, no afterlife of the kind currently believed in, no reward or punishment, only a spirit state which was completely different from earthly life. The spirits, if they belonged to the order, could continue to enjoy themselves and be earthly powers, acting through living members, but that was all. The preaching of this spiritual vampirism seemed to delight his followers as much as it infuriated his enemies, because Bayezid now gave out more and more of the new doctrine based upon his no afterlife creed. Eat, drink, and be merry. Gain power, look after yourself. You have no allegiance except to the order, he told them, and all humanity which cannot identify itself by our secret sign is our lawful prey. The secret signal was to pass a hand over the forehead, palm inwards, the countersign to hold the ear with the fingers and support the elbow in the cupped other hand. Bayezid took to himself the style of Piri Roshan, sage of illumination, and founded a city at Hashtnagar, which was to be the center from which Illuminism was to spread all over the world. Each member of his following was given a new name upon entry, and this name depended upon the guild to which he in theory belonged. According to Bayezid, all humanity was divided into professions. His were lamp makers. Some members were the makers, others sold lamps. Some were known as this kind of lamp, some another. Lamp of the Darkness was a typical example. Among the other guilds noted are those of the builders, probably no connection with the much later Muslim Brotherhood, also organized as builders. Soldiers, merchants of various kinds, and scribes. Writing in the 19th century, an Afghan scholar who was by no means fond of the society of the Roshaniya claimed that they were in fact an organization devoted to fighting against the tyranny of the Mughals, and that the banditry and strange doctrines attributed to them were untrue allegations by interested parties. He bases this upon 2 manuscript copies of the objectives of the order, which seem to have stated that it was dedicated to influencing people of importance throughout the East and West towards greater justice and self-training into the immense capacities of the human mind, whereby wonders can be caused and through which the harmony of the world will be established. These ideas are taken from those enshrined in our ancient literature and practices, as well as those of the Persians, many of whom followed the true illuminated path before the new message, probably Islam, was revealed. In the end, the Imperial Mughal decided that something must be done about the widespread power of the militant mystics of the Hindu Kush mountains. The governor of Kabul arrested Bayezid, clapped him in irons, and paraded him through the streets to show that here was no supernatural being. To give further point to the proceedings, his hair and beard were half-shaved, but this governor, Mohsin Khan, was under the ascendancy of his religious guide, one Sheikh Atari, who may even have been a secret adherent of the Illuminated One, for the cult was spreading with rapidity. In any case, he told the governor that Bayezid was undoubtedly a man of great and holy attainments, and that considerable suffering would inevitably attend anyone who treated him harshly. Bayezid was allowed to escape. The indignities to which he had been subjected kindled his Illuminism still higher. Calling his numerous companions, he retired to tribal Tira, where he set up a military and court atmosphere which is still remembered for its glamour, fervor, and mystery. India and Persia were to be overcome by force of arms, he announced. To that end, many more were to be enrolled into the ranks of the Illuminated. Enthusiastic scenes throughout Afghanistan resulted from the proclamation, which was carried far and wide to the accompaniment of kettle drums and wild sword dances. When he was ready, Bayezid, attended by his Halka circle of dervishes, led the campaign into the lush land of India. Intercepted by the Mohsin Khan, whom he had earlier escaped, he was wounded, put to flight, and eventually died as a result of the encounter. His son, Omar Ansari, proclaimed himself leader and immediately ordered an attack upon the Pathan tribe of the Yusufzai, who had allied themselves with the Mughal. He was killed by the hillmen, and his own son, the servant of the One, took over the leadership. By the middle of the 17th century, this youth had been killed defending his castle against a Mughal expeditionary force. His infant son escaped with some of his followers into Afghanistan proper, where the cult was restarted. The descendants of this Abdul Qadir, servant of the powerful, continued to rule the fanatics and to send their teachers far and wide. The creed split into two divisions, the military and the religious, and nowadays it is only the followers of the latter way who survive. Still a secret cult which might, given the right conditions, have touched off a movement as important as that of the assassins. Head of Venus, Aphrodite, found in Cyprus, where legend has it that the goddess was born. Some of the witch cults of today worship similar statues. Witch Sabbat, showing the survival of the two-homed cult elements in Western Europe. Bedouin Arab with initiation tattoos. 40 years after the last religio-military leader of the Afghan Illuminated Ones died, a society of the same name, the Illuminati, came into being in Germany, formed, it is said, by Adam Weishaupt, the young professor of canon law at Ingolstadt University. Coincidences of date and beliefs connect these Bavarian Illuminati with the Afghan ones and also with the other cults which called themselves Illuminated. The beginning of the 17th century saw the foundation of the Illuminated Ones of Spain. The Alumbrados, condemned in an edict of the Grand Inquisition in 1623. In 1654, the Illuminated Guérinais came into public notice in France. Documents still extant show several points of resemblance between the German and Central Asian Illuminists, points which are hard to account for on the grounds of pure coincidence, and yet which still might, one supposes, be nothing more than that. The Prophet Muhammad, for example, is claimed as an initiate by the Western Illuminati. Their calendar is the very same which survived in current usage in the former Iranian territories among the Afghans of the time. New Year's Day with them was the same day as the Persian and Afghan Nevroz festival. Further, the degrees of initiation, although seemingly artificial ones coupled with some of the degrees of Freemasonry, were also 8, and there are parallels in the naming of the individual degrees. Like the Roshaniya, the Illuminati stated that they had the objective of gaining important converts for the purpose of improving the state of the world. A comparison of the degrees shows the similarity as seen here. The early stages of initiation were designed to admit people into the Brotherhood, to test them for reliability, and possibly to train them for responsible tasks connected with the greater diffusion of knowledge. Even in higher degrees, it seems that tests are also applied. Those who were to become priests, for example, were taken to a secret place where a throne stood, with before it the choice of priestly or royal regalia. The aspirant had to make his choice. Those who opted for the symbols of worldly power were dismissed, but candidates taking up the sacred vestments were saluted with the phrase, "Hail, O Holy One." The members of this degree were considered teachers, in whose hands was the training of disciples. Priests identified themselves with a secret sign. Both hands, crossed, were placed flat upon the head. In shaking hands, the priest extended his palm, with the thumb held vertically upwards. The countersign was a fist, with the thumb enclosed within it. Princes were those who could influence events at a very high level, either in academic or political affairs. The room in which the initiation to this high and secret degree was celebrated was hung with red. The garments which the prince was to wear were red and white. These are, of course, the colors of the Ismailis as well. In the ritual, the candidate is presented as a slave and states that he wants to liberate society from tyranny. The sign of the degree was the extending of both arms. As the countersign, before taking the hand of another, the prince gripped both his elbows. In 1786, a raid upon the house of an influential lawyer, Zwack, revealed secret papers connected with the order, and it is through these that many of the inner workings of the organization became known. Men were to be influenced through their women folk, and a large-scale plan for initiating women members was at an advanced stage of development. The following cipher was used by members in the lower degrees as seen here. The secret writing of the highest degrees of the order was quite different as seen here. It has been widely claimed that many of the charges which were made against the German Illuminati were false, and that the possession of instructions, for instance, on forging seals, was due to the fact that the lawyer Zwack had a collection devoted to that subject, as a matter of legal interest to him. It is also said that the project of enrolling women and young girls had in actual fact been taken from the aims of a very different society, the Mopses. While this matter still remains open, however, one may as well examine some of the documents which are stated to have belonged to the society. Zwack had written in his own hand a document describing the manufacture of a strongbox, which would blow up if it were tampered with. He also had a collection of impressions of the seals of several hundred important persons, and the already mentioned data on how to forge or substitute them. These, he stated in a letter of protest, were a part of the exhibits in his criminological collection. The famous memorandum detailing the plan to win over women to the cause comes from papers seized at the home of Baron Bassus, one of the members. The document states that women are the best means of influencing men. They should be enrolled, and into their minds put a hope that they might themselves in time be released from the tyranny of public opinion. Another letter asks how young women can be influenced, since their mothers would not consent to their being placed under the Illuminati for instruction. 5 women were suggested by one member as a start. They were 4 stepdaughters of one of the Illuminati who were to be placed in the care of the wife of yet another Illuminated One. They, in their turn, would enlarge the society through their friends. It was further mentioned that women are not considered to be really suitable for such an undertaking because they are fickle and impatient. But the order was most sorely hit by the fact that something quite discreditable to the character of the founder was discovered, and it was thought that he might be trying to use the organization for personal reasons. Weishaupt, upon the suppression of the order, refused a pension which he was offered after he had been dismissed from his professorial chair. He attributed his downfall to the machinations of the Jesuits, whom he hated, and who had opposed him as he was not of their number, whereas they considered the university post which he held to be a long-standing prerogative of their own. He and Zwack were both banished, and little is heard of them thereafter, although there are rumors that they carried on the society respectively in Saxe-Coburg and the Netherlands. Illuminism had spread to France, however, some years before its suppression in Germany. Influential personages were members, many drawn from the ranks of the important Masons of Paris. As in the case of the German branch, it was soon alleged that they pursued terrible aims and practiced frightful orgies. An extract from a French book, almost certainly grossly exaggerated, of the 1790s, Le Secte des Illumines, will give a fair idea of this. The huge chateau of Ermenonville near Paris was one of the chief lodges of the Illuminated. It belonged to the Marquis of Girardin, who protected Rousseau and later gave him a tomb on his estate. Saint-Germain, the notable impostor, presided over it. He claimed to be 1,000 years old and to be able to make gold. He was said to be immortal but died in 1784. On the day of his initiation, the candidate was conducted through a long, dark passage into an immense hall draped with black. He was able to see, by the faint light of sepulchral lamps, corpses in their shrouds. The altar, built of human skeletons, stood in the center. Ghostly forms moved through the hall, leaving behind them a foul odor. At length, two men, dressed as specters, appeared and tied a pink band or ribbon smeared with blood around his forehead. Upon this was an image of the Lady of Loreto. A crucifix was placed in his hand, and an amulet hung around his neck. His clothes were removed and laid upon a funeral pyre, while upon his body crosses were smeared in blood. Then his pudenda were tied with string. Now 5 horrid and frightening figures, blood-stained and mumbling, approached him and threw themselves down in prayer. After an hour, sounds of weeping were heard. The funeral pyre started to burn, and his clothes were consumed. From the flames of this fire, a huge and almost transparent form arose, while the 5 prostrate figures went into terrible convulsions. Now came the voice of an invisible hierophant, booming from somewhere below. The words were those of these oaths, which the candidate had to repeat. In the name of the crucified one, I swear to sever all bonds which unite me with mother, brothers, sisters, wife, relatives, friends, mistress, kings, superiors, benefactors, or any other man to whom I have promised faith, service, or obedience. I name the place in which I was born. Henceforth I live in another dimension, which I will not reach until I have renounced the evil globe which has been cursed by heaven. From now onwards I shall reveal to my new chief all that I have heard or found out, and I shall also seek out and observe things which might otherwise have escaped me. I honor the aqua tofana. It is a quick and essential medium of removing from the earth, through death or robbing them of their wits, of those who oppose truth and those who try to take it from our hands. I shall avoid Spain, Naples, and all other accursed lands, and I shall avoid the temptation to betray what I have now heard. Lightning will not strike as rapidly as the dagger, which will reach me wherever I may be should I betray my initiation. Now a candelabrum bearing 7 black candles is placed before the candidate, and also a bowl containing human blood. He washes himself in the blood and drinks a quantity of it. The string around his pudenda is removed. He is placed in a bath to undergo complete ablution. After this, he eats a meal composed of root vegetables. While it is possible that such ceremonies as this have actually taken place, it will be recalled that such items as human blood are generally not of the genuine variety in any society other than those reputed to be dedicated to criminal or perverted ends. But, as with the initiations of other societies, there is no doubt that the candidate may have been made to believe that he was actually going through an initiation which involved horrible things of this nature. Initiation into the ancient mysteries was often accompanied by the exposure of the candidate to fear and other emotions in order to make him receptive to the oath or message which was to be made manifest. A figure J. Roshaniya emblem, meaning light. It has been said that the European version of the Order of the Illuminati contributed in no small measure to the development of revolutionary doctrines which eventually culminated in the Russian and other communist machines. There is little doubt that the order was dedicated to the overcoming of princely power, as it was then known, and to the diffusion of anti-religious ideas. This can best be seen by examining the development of the teaching of the member as he progressed from one degree of initiation to the next. Many young enthusiasts with a taste for mystery and a desire to fight oppression in any form were drawn, through a deliberate plan, from the ranks of the Freemasons. After an oath of obedience and silence had been extracted from the candidate, he was handed over to a director, to be taught that the order was one of discipline and effort, and that the final objectives were to do good through leaving aside all preconceived notions and upon the basis of free thought to lead mankind to salvation. Those who managed to show that they were likely to accept the next stage in teaching were advanced to the rank in which he was made to swear that he would work under the orders of his masters without doubt or question. He would not use his critical faculties in any way in any matter connected with such instructions. In the lower ranks, the nursery, the member was very much in the dark as to the way in which the order was run and how it should accomplish its design of freeing the world. As he progressed, however, he found that a part of his service to the society was to gain financial and social power and to place them at the disposal of the group. He was expected to be a diligent Mason and to try to gain control over Masonic funds. It was not until the 10th rite of promotion had been completed that the member was given, with the grade of priest, certain definite knowledge. This included the fact that the Illuminati were proposing to destroy princes and prelates throughout the world and were to remove forever the feeling of local nationality from the minds of men. The ways in which this was to be done involved infiltrating high positions in education, administration, and the press. The very highest degrees showed that the rationalism and materialism of the thinkers who developed it were determined to stamp out belief in religion. God and any faith in a deity, the initiate was told, were human inventions and had no real meaning. Subsequently, this was developed further, and the member who arrived at the highest position, that of Rex, king, learned that he was now equal to a king and that all men were capable of equal advancement. Hence, the need for kings over ordinary mortals was an illusion. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. And if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.